Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits and I'm here with Dyer Supplier to talk with you about the tools and equipment you need so you can get started dyeing yarn with acid dyes at home. Acid dyes are really easy to use and can bring beautiful color to yarn. But you want to make sure that you have dedicated dye equipment that isn't used for food so that way you can safely use these dyes at home. I use acid dyes in my kitchen, on my stovetop, all the time. And so I'm going to take you through my favorite pots, pans, utensils, and all of the things that I like to use to make my life easier as I'm playing around with dyeing yarn. To dye yarn with acid dyes, you need four main things. The acid dyes themselves, some acid in the form of vinegar or citric acid, protein-based yarn, and then you need heat. The following tools and equipment are some of my favorites to use, and you'll see me use them in my tutorials over and over again. To dye yarn with acid dyes, you need a protein-based yarn. Wool, alpaca, silk, cashmere, all of these fibers are protein-based. You'll find that different fibers will absorb dye at different rates. Superwash wool absorbs dye faster than non-superwash wool, and silk and alpaca tend to be a tiny bit slower and need a little more acid than wool. Dyer Supplier offers many affordable yarn bases that are beautiful to dye and knit with. You can find more information on their website. Now let's talk about the dye. Jacquard has 40 different acid dye colors that you can choose from. There are multiple primaries, but you can also find secondary and tertiary colors if you don't want to play with mixing them yourself. You can find all 40 colors on the Dyer Supplier website. Acid dyes require acid in order to set the yarn, and you can find that in the form of white vinegar or citric acid. I most often use white vinegar in my videos, but I know some people are sensitive to the acetic acid smell, so a lot of other dyers prefer to use citric acid powder. Both of these options work great and can be used interchangeably for many techniques. I protect my work surface with a vinyl shower curtain liner, so that way I can easily wipe up dye and protect my counter underneath. Sometimes if I'm hand painting and really want to be able to keep the colors separate, I will use some plastic wrap on top of the surface so that way I can roll up the yarn afterwards to steam set it. But in general, I try to avoid using single-use plastics with my dyeing as much as possible. Safety is really important, and so when I'm dealing with any dye powder, I'm always wearing some kind of respirator or at minimum a face mask. And I will be wearing gloves and safety goggles to protect myself from any powders going in the air or any spills. I like to wear my favorite purple nitrile gloves to protect my skin while I'm handling dyes. My dedicated dye pot is an 8-quart stainless steel multi-pot. It comes with a steamer basket that is really handy for steaming any hand-painted yarn. This pot also came with a pasta insert that I also use, either as a way to easily remove roving from the pot, or if I need to steam a lot more fiber all at once, then I will use this pasta insert. I use this pot for steam setting, full immersion, and kettle dyeing. For low immersion and many speckling techniques, I love to use this full-size catering chafer pan. It can fit across 2 of the gas burners on my stove, and it's great for giving you a lot of surface area for dyeing yarn. These pans come in multiple sizes. This one is a full-size pan that is 4 inches deep. This pan is stainless steel and is extremely sturdy. In addition to your pots and pans, you will also want some dedicated dyeing tools. I really like using slotted spoons and tongs to help manipulate the yarn while it's in the pot and too hot to touch with my hands. These tongs have a silicone tip, and so they don't snag the yarn in any way, and it's really great to use. I purposefully picked tools that look different from the ones that I use for cooking in my kitchen, so that way there's no way that anything will ever accidentally get put away in the wrong drawer. I have multiple sets of measuring cups, measuring spoons that I use frequently for measuring and mixing dyes together. I also like to use graduated cylinders, beakers, and syringes to help measure out liquid dyes. The syringes can also come in handy to apply dye to fiber, along with squeeze bottles, some basting brushes, and sometimes I even use foam paint brushes when I want to stencil or apply dye in a very precise way. When making stock solutions, I prefer to measure dyes by weight versus volume. So an accurate kitchen scale is a really valuable tool for a dyer. As a knitter, these scales also come in really handy, so that way you know how much yarn you used in a project and how much yarn you have left. And so I use these scales all the time with my crafting. Finally, one of my favorite tools is to use removable nylon zip ties as an extra tie on yarn. They are so handy for helping prevent the yarn getting tangled. It functions as an extra tie, and you can lift the whole yarn by the tie in the pan to flip it and move it around, and you won't accidentally tangle things up. And so it's something that I personally use in almost every dyeing project that I do. If you would like to learn more about any of the tools or equipment that I used in this video, you can find a link to my website in the video description, where you can find a list of everything that I talked about in this video. But don't worry, you do not have to buy everything new. Secondhand shops are a great place to find dedicated dye pots and utensils. Once you have all the tools and equipment, it's time to start pulling together the yarn. Dyer Supplier offers many beautiful yarn bases that are ethically sourced, mulesing free, and there are so many varieties of fiber types and yarn weights that you can find something perfect for your project. Not to mention that they are affordably priced, and there are bulk pricing options available. You can find more details at dyersupplier.com. When it comes to the acid dyes, Jacquard is one of the best brands out there. And Dyer Supplier now carries all 40 colors on their website. Woohoo! So you can buy your bare yarn and your dyes at the same time. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and if you would like to watch me dye more yarn in many different ways, go and check out the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel. You can find a link in the video description. With all of these tools at your disposal, there are unlimited options for combining them all together. You can create so many different colorways just by varying the way you combine the dye, the yarn, with the acid, and when and where you apply the heat. Above all else, have fun! Thank you so much for watching, everyone.